What's up, YouTube? It's the one and only legend of winning, aka Low, and I am back with another video. Now, when it comes to a player's career, the amount of success that he has, and his overall legacy, there are certain things that we are able to witness to prove how great that player is. Regardless if it's the development of the player, the game winners, and even the championships that everyone strives to achieve, there are certain things that we can use to measure how great a player is, so we can figure out how much of a legacy they have and the impact that they had on the game. However, there are certain things that we may not be privileged to witnessing, such as the endless hours of watching film, the hard workouts, the tireless practices and debates that happen in the locker room, and the general manager and the owners who make the calls and sign the players to aid the process of winning games. And in today's video, that's where I actually want to talk about. When it comes to the amount of quote-unquote help that a player may receive throughout his entire career, we normally end that conversation with the talent that's on the floor. However, that argument should be opened up to a bigger perspective. You also have to take into account for the general manager, the owner, the coaches, everything that could possibly be in play. And when it comes to LeBron James, unlike a lot of his other peers, especially when you talk about the top 10, top 20, even top 50 greatest players of all time, LeBron was put at a massive disadvantage early on in his career, and even right now he is still met with that disadvantage, unfortunately. And that disadvantage, and the person who possibly could be still ruining LeBron James' legacy, is Dan Gilbert. For people out there who are unaware, Dan Gilbert is the majority owner of the Cleveland Cavaliers. And ever since he has received that title, it has been almost impossible for him to run the organization with any type of excellence or any type of knowledge of the game of basketball. But for people out there who are still questioning my thought process or believe that I may be taking a bit too much of a leap, let me explain to you what exactly LeBron had to deal with for the first 7 years of his career. So, like I stated earlier, Dan Gilbert is the majority owner of the Cleveland Cavaliers, and he has received that title since the year 2005. Ever since then, Dan Gilbert has had the complete control of the day-to-day operations of the Cleveland Cavaliers. And once he took over the Cavaliers as a majority owner, he decided to change everything from the front office to the coaching to the player personnel, even the color of the seats in the arena. Dan Gilbert decided to really put the organization in a different direction, and rightfully so, because it's not like the organization saw a lot of success prior to him being the majority owner. But unfortunately for LeBron, the inexperience of Dan Gilbert immediately starts to show. As a head coach, Dan Gilbert decides to go with Mike Brown, who was a rookie head coach at the time, and then he also decided to go with Danny Ferry as a general manager, who also was a rookie general manager. Now, when it comes to Mike Brown, I actually believe he's a pretty good coach, especially on the defensive end, and that's where he's really had his bread butter and got his name from. However, offensively, his inability to create some type of consistent play, especially with the Cleveland Cavaliers, has really hurt not only the Cavs' chance of winning in the early 2000s, but also it hurt LeBron in his development as well. Then we go on to Danny Ferry. Now, I'm not going to go through every single last decision that Danny Ferry and Dan Gilbert did in the beginning of LeBron's career. However, I'm pretty sure we all are aware of the names that LeBron played with in the early parts of his career in Cleveland. The Delonte West, the Boobie Gibsons, the Sasha Pavloviches. Actually, the best move that Danny Ferry made for the organization was acquiring Mo Williams, but unfortunately for LeBron, Mo Williams only played with him for 2 seasons before he moved to Miami. However, if there is one stream of signing and trades that I have to point out when it comes to Danny Ferry to show his incompetence, it started off with his first big move by signing Larry Hughes. At that time, Larry Hughes was coming off his best season as a pro, averaging over 20 points, led the league in steals. However, he still had massive holes in his game. He was completely inconsistent from the field, he struggled to stay on the court due to injuries, and at the age of 27, you obviously have to be very cautious of what type of contract you give him, because you don't want him to be stuck on your bill for multiple years, and he's just not that productive. However, Danny Ferry blew all cautions to the wind and decided to sign Larry Hughes to a 5-year, $70 million contract. And unfortunately for everyone in the organization, Larry Hughes really did not pan out. His first year in the organization, he only played 36 games. Second year, he played 70, however, he shot 40% from the field. And then in the third season, he was so inefficient, so inconsistent from the field, that they had to trade him at the deadline. Shooting 37% from the field is completely unacceptable. However, because of the massive contract that he signed and the inefficiency that he consistently was producing, it was pretty hard to find someone that was willing to take on that contract. So they had to get in a 3-team trade a couple of pieces that included Larry Hughes, and in return the Cleveland Cavaliers received Wallace Shaq, Delonte West, and Ben Wallace. Wallace Shaq was 1 year removed from retiring. Delonte West only played 2 seasons with the organization, both of which he only played 65 games or less, and Ben Wallace was way out of his prime. However, he was getting paid $14 to $15 million on a year-to-year basis. So because Ben Wallace and the ridiculous contract that he had on the salary cap, along with his inability to produce and him not being on the floor consistently enough, trading him only made sense. So a few years later down the line, they paired Ben Wallace with Sasha Pavlovich and moved in a new direction and received Shaquille O'Neal. Now this isn't Lakers Shaq, this isn't even Miami Shaq. This was 1 year removed from retiring, massively overweight, couldn't stay on the floor for over 60 games Shaq. And to make matters even worse, he was getting paid $20 million. Now the reason why I wanted to point out those transactions and those trades, not only did it handcuff the organization and talent and LeBron's ambition to win a championship, but it also handcuffed them financially, because from Larry Hughes to Ben Wallace to Shaquille O'Neal, they were the highest paid player on the Cleveland Cavaliers payroll. Let me be extremely clear on what I just said, just in case you don't understand me. When Larry Hughes was playing for the team, he was getting paid more than LeBron. When Ben Wallace was on the team, he was getting paid more than LeBron. And when Shaq was on the team, not only was he getting paid more than LeBron, but he was one of the highest paid players in the NBA. Not only did LeBron provide them with talent, skills, athleticism, and just all-around play that was able to carry them consistently regardless of the talent that was on the floor, he also gave them financial flexibility, and they still did nothing with that whatsoever. But here's where things get even worse. See, in the year 2010, LeBron was on an expiring contract, he had not signed an extension, and the organization felt pressure to make a move to push them in title contention mode. And quite honestly, they were pretty close, because at that time, even with the lack of talent that was around LeBron, there was still a massive amount of success. So with that knowledge, you would understand that the organization would be making it a priority to get some type of talent, at least at an all-star level, to bring to the organization to help LeBron win a championship. And just as you would all think, they had the opportunity to do so. The Phoenix Suns at the time were willing to move Amar'e Stoudemire, and in return, all they wanted was Ilgauskas and JJ Hickson. Now, Danny Ferry might have been a rookie, he might have been incompetent, however, he wasn't stupid, and he was about to make that trade. However, you know who is stupid? Dan Gilbert, because Dan Gilbert decided to butt into the transaction and decline the trade. His thought process was that he didn't want to lose Amar'e Stoudemire and LeBron James in free agency and end up moving from JJ Hickson, who had some type of promise at that point in time. However, here was a problem with that. One, if you brought Amar'e Stoudemire to the finals, you have a better chance of signing him back to the team than anyone else. Two, you would probably believe that bringing someone to the organization would also convince LeBron to stay. And three, he was so concerned about JJ Hickson that a year and a half later, they end up trading JJ Hickson anyway for Omir Caspi and a second-round pick. Fast forward to where we are right now, and Dan Gilbert is still making idiotic decisions. For people out there who've been watching my channel for the past couple of months now, you know how critical I have been with the Cleveland Cavaliers in the front office, including Dan Gilbert. Because to this day, I just don't understand this, but to this day, Dan Gilbert firing David Griffin a week before his contract expires makes absolutely no sense. To make matters worse, Dan Gilbert decided to fire David Griffin on June 19th. The NBA draft was on June 22nd. Why would you not just wait a couple of more days and then decide to fire David Griffin if he was not able to do what you wanted him to do? Here's the cherry on top of all of this though, because here we are now finding out that after he fired David Griffin, he went an entire month without a general manager. And now here we are realizing that Kyrie Irving requested a trade before the NBA draft. That is the reason why David Griffin was trying to move Kyrie Irving to get something in return and hopefully put the Cavaliers in a situation to win a championship or at least be a contender so LeBron can be convinced to stay on the organization. But here we go again. Oh boy. Dan Gilbert. Man, Dan Gilbert, you were something else. Dan Gilbert completely side railing whatever the general manager needed to do to put the organization in a better situation. Now, the reason why I bring this up is to enlighten you on a different perspective. When it comes to help, like I stated before, it's a lot more than just the teammates that you have on the bench and on the floor. You have to look at coaching, you have to look at general managers, owners, even the economy that you are playing in, if it's a large market or a small market. All of those things come in play. And when it comes to LeBron, unfortunately for him, for 7 years, half of his career, he was put in a situation that left him at a massive disadvantage. Compare what he's been able to accomplish to nearly everyone else that we would consider his peers. When it comes to Larry Bird, he entered the NBA on one of the most storied franchises in NBA history. Same thing can be said about Magic Johnson. Look at Kobe Bryant with Shaquille O'Neal. Tim Duncan has never really had to worry about the personnel and the coaching because it's been a pretty consistent stream of great players coming in. And then even look at Michael Jordan. Forget the Scottie Pippen argument, forget the Phil Jackson argument. Just always remember this. Michael Jordan retired midway through the 90s, abruptly, didn't let anyone know, just retired. Came back a year and a half later, and then in one off season, the Chicago Bulls were able to cultivate a title contending roster around Michael Jordan. However, LeBron left the Cleveland Cavaliers, gave them 4 years, 4 years, people. And in 4 years, they went from a rookie general manager in Danny Ferry to another rookie general manager in Chris Grant to another rookie general manager in Dan Griffin. They went from Mike Brown as a head coach to Byron Scott as a head coach, fired Byron Scott, and went right back to Mike Brown. And as we all know, some of the trades and signings were also extremely questionable, but infamously, we all remember those 4 years when they selected Anthony Bennett with the number 1 pick in the 2013 draft. LeBron should have been able to come back to Cleveland with a roster that had so much promise, so much potential, so many young players who were willing and able to aid LeBron for years and years to come. Now, let me make something clear, wrap this video up, and leave you on this perspective. I'm not trying to discredit what Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, Larry Bird, Magic Johnson, and so on and so forth. I'm not trying to discredit some of the greatest players in NBA history and what they've been able to do, because at the end of the day, everyone needs help. This is a team sport. There are certain checks and balances. You have owners, general managers who are supposed to make the decisions for the organization to make the team better. But what I am trying to do is have you think about this. What if LeBron was drafted to an organization with a competent owner, a competent general manager who was able to add to his legacy and not take away from it?